All right, guys, chapter 19 and any other part of the book tonight. Robert Monroe's Ultimate Journey. We finally made it to the Ultimate Journey, all three books. So I'm Juice out of New York. Just enjoying messing around with Gateway. Nothing more to report, unfortunately. I wish it was more, but I'm having fun with that. I just want to mention that after this is done tonight, I'm going to move into the Gateway CIA documents that been released. So since the books are fresh in our head, we can see how it relates to what was released from the CIA and how it compares to about what we talked about through the three books. All right, Susan, I'm going to move to you. What's new?
Hmm, not a whole lot. Let's see. Since the last meeting, I've been meditating a lot outside, grounding myself and trying to that's all I've really been trying to do is just get into a really good meditative state and just observe, just be very quiet because it just feels wonderful. And a couple of night before last, oh, something did happen. Night before last, this was fun. Um, um, uh, I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning and went to the kitchen to get me a glass of water. And when I came back, when I left, there was nothing out of the ordinary going on. And when I came back, I got into the hallway before I turned into my bedroom and I smelled flowers. Um, and the more closer I got to my bedroom, the stronger it became. And then I got into the bedroom and I could smell in there and I laid down and I just laid there and watched the room. And I thought, where is this coming from? Because that night it was cool here. We didn't have central air, heat, anything on. There was no air circulation. I don't use any scented products in my house, except once in a while I use a soy candle. That's it. I'm allergic to too many things. So I don't have all that stuff in the house. But the whole bedroom filled with this scent, this floral scent. It was just so amazingly beautiful. And I it just got stronger and stronger. I woke my husband up and I said, "Can you smell that?" And he sat up and he said, "Yeah, yeah, I can smell it. Where's that coming from?" And I said, "I don't know, but it's not anything in this house. There's nothing in the house. There were no windows open. There's nothing." But he got up and looked around. There's nothing. There's no place. It was in our bedroom, and it filled the whole bedroom up. And he went on to sleep. And I laid there for an hour and a half till 3:30. I laid there just looking around and trying to be very meditative, but leaving my eyes open and looking. I never saw anything, but the smell stayed until I went to sleep. And when I woke up the next morning, it was gone. But it was the most beautiful. It filled the room. It was wonderful. And I thought at first, this is the scent that goes along with the rainbow body, or something like that. I've only smelled something similar a long time ago. Oh boy, about 40 years ago. My mother-in-law passed away in Houston. I was here, and when she passed away, we had talked about it. She promised she would come see me, or she would let us all know she was okay. And before we got the call, but I was home alone before I got the call that she'd passed away. I For some reason, something told me to walk outside my front door, which I did. I was just standing just outside my front door, and this breeze came up from out of nowhere. Shouldn't have been there, shouldn't have been that cool, and it smelled like flowers, but it was just brief. It just passed right by me, and I knew that was her. And within a minute, the phone rang, and it was people calling from the hospital in Houston, told me she'd passed away. So she swung through and saw us. I smelled it, just a little bit of it, and this was just overwhelming. It was everywhere. It was amazing.
It's amazing how something like that can just brighten up the day.
Yeah,
Something so
yeah. I
simple.
still
Yeah,
smile about
just a
it when I talk
smell.
about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Thanks, Susan.
yeah.
Hi, Mikey. What's new?
Hi guys. Well, I was told that don't get on the ferry. Um, 2 days again, I will be on the island. Excuse the dogs. As Susan was sharing, fragrances. I picked up fragrances when people has passed on, and I remember back then my grandfather said, Mikey, you can do this. And I picked up a fragrance and I said, someone has passed, and they did pass.
Yeah.
I have read the chapter and it was very sad. But the message I got was we have people all the time, but when it comes home, it's a problem. And I remembered while I was reading the chapter, when my problems came, it was so different from when I would help someone. And I remember I'm seeing my wife cheating on me and so on, and it's so devastating to me. No, it's good to help people. I have helped a lot of people on, in my journey. But when it came home, it's much different story. It hurts quite a lot. And while I was reading the chapter there, I felt so much for Robert Monroe. Excuse the dogs. This island has a lot of dogs.
Hey, Mikey, you remember the last Zoom meeting you wanted to know about the quick switch information?
Yes, I did.
I pulled up some information for you. I'm going to read it real quick on it. On the quick switch method. And here's a little description. A faster method of moving human consciousness from one location to another without time-space limitations. Take your consciousness and stretch it like a rubber band to your destination. Then let go of it. Where you are, you snap to a new site. This must begin in a state of consciousness focused away from the physical body, and it does take practice.
It certainly does. Robert Monroe, he is a pioneer. He is a pro. I have tried things and, it just doesn't work with me. I have to go the long way, meditate, and so on.
I think most of us are with you on that. Thanks, Mikey. Hi, Marty. What's new?
Hey. Oh, well, nothing in the OBE department. But in Cocoa Beach last weekend, we had the dog surfing championships. So I did get to see a golden retriever coming in on a surfboard, and that was pretty cool. And also wanted to mention are you guys aware of the biography of Robert Monroe called The Journey of Robert Monroe?
I think either you brought that up, Marty, or somebody brought it up during our past meetups. Was it you?
I'll put possibly, but I'll put a link on the chat site. But I was looking through that. It's like 550 pages. It's a big, long thing, but it goes over all the books, and it's interesting because it gives a lot of background as what was going on while he was writing, these books, and the relationships between him and the people that were in the Monroe Institute. And also, some of the things like after his wife died that he became, I don't know if he was just so distraught or if he was getting demented or what, but he started alienating people at the, and they were leaving, they had, that was like a 600-acre place, and they sold off lots that were like 5 or 6 acres. So a lot of the founders and so on had bought lots and were living there, and they were selling their houses and moving and so on. So there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. I'll put it in the chat site if anybody is wanting more Robert Monroe.
Yeah, definitely.
A whole lot of stuff about a really lot about speculating on consciousness and what different philosophies are on consciousness and so on is in that book as well.
Yeah, now would be the time to read it for any of us. Well, everything's fresh in our heads. Thanks, Marty. Marty, you know your video camera's off?
I didn't. I'll put it on.
Okay. I just know that usually you're on with me, so.
Okay.
I see an X through it.
Let me do that.
And if you don't feel like being in the camera today, you can just put your alien there instead. righty. Hey, Andrew. What's a happening?
Yeah,
What's
hi.
new, Andrew? How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. How are you?
Andrew, you're out in the Caribbean too, right?
Caribbean? No, no. I'm on lockdown here in the UK.
Oh, you're in the UK. Okay.
Yeah. I'm based in the UK. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's just Mikey in the Caribbean then. I thought there was somebody else in the Caribbean too.
No, I wish I was in the Caribbean though.
Well,
Yeah.
Andrew, you know you can go there out of body though, so you'll be all right.
Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't beat going there physically though.
Yeah,
So,
I hear you. What's
okay.
new?
Yeah.
What's new?
Yes. I stumbled onto an experience I had. Now I've had this before, but I didn't really pay much attention to it. Um, and it revolves around sleep paralysis. When we're in the energy body and we're experiencing sleep paralysis, and it's to do with the rollout method, where you roll out and then you know. So this time I decided I am not going to roll out. I'm not going to literally roll out. I'm going to do it mentally. So I did it mentally, and I got a very, very strange result. Because when I rolled out mentally, I was still aware that I'm lying down in my bed, or and I was able to see my body. Okay, but when I say body, the body that I saw wasn't my physical body, but it was the energy body or my etheric form. But I was only able to see it briefly. So now I decided, let me go through to the passageway, and then everything was plunged into darkness. Now I heard somebody share something similar like that in one of the groups where they said they couldn't see and they couldn't open their eyes. But there's so many circumstances where that can happen, where if you should open your eyes, it's going to spoil the experience. But this one in particular is different. The difference being is that it's kind of like a mind split thing, or like a bilocation. You're aware you are lying down on the bed, on the bed. You're not your physical form, but your etheric form is lying down. You're aware that it's lying down on the bed, and there's this other part of you that you've projected out that could see the body briefly, but as soon as I went through the door, to where my stairway was, I could feel the stairs, I could feel everything, but I couldn't get any visuals. So now the simple thing would be, okay, why don't you just open your eyes or say clarity now? But the problem with that is that if you open your eyes, there is no vision there. Your eyes has to open on the bed where you're lying on, and that was I did it twice. Twice I did it, and I got the same results. Now the simple way of doing it, say for example, I don't want to do that. I want to do it literally. I want to literally just roll out. Well, I found out that there's no point in rolling out because you're already on the psychic plane in your energy body. All you have to do is open your eyes and get up. You don't have to roll off the bed in the first place. Yeah. If you understand what I'm saying, you don't. If you've done the rollout technique before, you will understand what I'm saying. You don't have to actually roll out of the bed, because during the sleep paralysis process, you've already shifted your awareness to that first body, the one that Monroe speaks about. You're already in that body. So the idea of just rolling out of it, because when you roll out of that body, the bed is usually empty anyway.
So,
yeah, when you do the rollout technique, if you look at your bed will be empty. You will not be on the bed in the first place. So it's actually that body that you've rolled off the bed in the first place. Because there was one time I did a projection and I couldn't believe it. When I rolled out, I actually bounced on the floor and I felt it very, very physical. And I thought, oh my God, this definitely can't be my energy. This has to be my physical body. So now I decide to get back to get up from the bed, because to get back and go back on my bed, to go back, and do it again. And then I realized that when I got back on the bed, there was nobody on the bed. It was just my body that I brought from the floor back onto the bed. So I simply opened my
Wow.
eyes, and I had a very, very, very strange experience. I saw a multitude of people that were just passing right through my room and walking towards the room I use for meditation. And there was some kind of light there. I don't know whether they were using that as a gateway to pass through. And I could tell that they were Christians, the way they were marching. There was just something that told me that they are Christians. And, they didn't see the etheric plane. All they could see was they were just following to where the light was, and they all filed in order. And this was all happening in my bedroom. So I now decided they were coming from my sitting room and then going towards the room I use for meditation. So I now decided, let me stand up and see whether I could stop one of them from passing by, from passing through. So I stood in front of, it was a female. I stood in front of her. At first, she froze, looked at me, and her eyes went like into like slits, which is basically a way of communicating, a non-physical way of communicating anger, because they're not in that body. You're not able to show anger, but with your eyes, you can show something which to show that you're angry. Because I've experienced that before when I've tried to test whether this is a dream character or whether this is an astral character. So, so anyway, all she simply did was she just stepped. She looked at me with a cold stare, and then stepped to the other side, and then continued on, where they were going, and they all just disappeared. So it was interesting because I have observed people crossing over before, but I found out that it's not just one person that crosses over. There will be other people with them who are crossing over. They might not necessarily know who these people are, but they are going at the same time. I don't know, maybe they're crossing over at the same time. But I've experienced that many times. So it's become kind of part of my truths that, people of the same vibration. I noticed that they were all of the same kind of beliefs. They had the same kind of belief system, the way they all fight together. And I've seen that before, both those who were going on a lower plane and those who are going on a higher plane. I have observed things like that. Now, going back to the sense of smell, apparently smell, because I've had a situation, there was a house I moved into, and there was an old woman. She was always complaining that there was gas smelling in it. Even though they had disconnected the gas, they've changed everything to electric, and they've shut everything down, she could still smell gas. So when I now moved into the house, I too started smelling the gas, even though there was no logical explanation for why there should be any gas smelling, in the house. I even had dreams, about it, and then I found out that um, one of our oldest senses is our sense of smell. You understand? So, and there's also a psychic part of that where we can smell non-physical smells, things that are not, so things that are not everybody will smell them, and there are some like the ones to describe where everybody will smell it, but there is no explanation as to why those smells are there. Some say that maybe it's like a spirit or a loved one that has come and they've left that strong aroma, which there is some truth in that, because I've experienced that myself. Where I started smelling rose, the smell of a rose incense burning, and I already know who I associated it with, and that person has passed on. So I'm familiar with with things like that. So that's about where I've been up to. But I've also found out that our mind are more powerful than what we think. Than what we think it is. We're very, very powerful beings once we're able to tap into these things. Mhm. Yeah.
Andrew, I was thinking, would you consider that, you know how Monroe talks about he gets into phasing over instead of out of body over, he phases. Would you consider that more of like a phase that you went into?
Um, I think everyone has got their own way of doing it. But once I get into once I face into that energy body, I can face into whatever I want to face into from that
Okay.
point. But it all depends on what is it you want to do. What do you want to accomplish? Which of the subtle bodies do you want to employ? Is it your mental body or which one? Because when he says he faces here, he faces there. Where does he go? Does he face into the physical world or does he go into the psychic world? Which I mean, because if he says he goes into the psychic world, I can see where, well, if he's going into the psychic world, is his astral body or or the etheric form? Now, if he's going into the physical plane and he's saying I can see things in physical, like in real time, and then we're talking the mental body called the immortal spirit. So his experience will tell me anyway which body he's using. The experience will tell me which body he's using, so I will know. Okay, that's the mental body. That's what he's talking about.
Okay.
So when he said if you want to face, you put your mind in the direction of where you want to go, and then you will be there, or stuff like that. Yes, that's how it operates. That's how the mental body operates. That's how a body, it operates, and it's quite easy once you've developed it. It's actually much easier to do mental projection than to do astral projection.
Andrew, you said we are very powerful beings. After we die, do you think we are still as powerful, or do we get the power from having a physical body?
Our power comes from the psychic part of our physical body. Our physical body has no power itself. You understand? But there are certain parts of our physical body, the psychic components of our physical body, that is where the power lies. So the whole idea is we try to transfer that power to our physical, right into our objective mind, and bring it in the here and now. And, into the here and now. And that's what we're trying to do.
But do you still think we're powerful after we're dead?
We're still powerful when we're dead. We don't become weaker when we die. We actually move into our more spiritual bodies. We move into our more natural body. The physical body is just an effect. It's an effect of an effect. So we think that we're just physical beings, but our physical part is just an effect of an effect. We're more astral and etheric being than we're a physical being. The part of us that is physical is like 20% or even low. So, and what I found out that the more I began to tap into these things and I started having experience, I was even beginning to question whether we were even humans.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? I was beginning to question whether I am a human being, because when you tap into these things, you begin to see that you're more than just this physical body. So we could actually be aliens using this physical body to live some physical experience.
Right.
So I'm beginning to look at ourselves as aliens that will come to have a physical experience.
Yeah. Monroe talks about that off and on in the book too, as well. Non-physical beings coming into human form and stuff.
Yeah.
And also other alien types that don't. So, thanks, Andrew.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Julie.
Hi.
What's new, Julie?
What's new? Not too much in with OBE stuff, although I'm recognizing more often now when I'm dreaming. You know how it's been said that when you have flying dreams, you probably are in the astral, and that's how when you wake up, that's how you've interpreted it as a flying dream. And now I know that I started getting into that in between state, and my non-physical body was doing that sloshing around thing within my physical, but it was in a dream. So in my dream, I forget what I knew I was feeling that feeling, and then all of a sudden I was on a raft in my dream. Like I was on a raft in the ocean, and I knew that I was in bed experiencing these ready to project kind of sensations. But then I woke up. I wasn't able to completely go lucid in my dream and make any attempts. But as soon as I woke up, I did try to make attempts, but it seemed like it was too late. It's really difficult to get that sweet spot when you wake up from a dream to be able to say, all right, let's roll out. I really want to get better at that. I need to get that. There's so many times that I could probably roll out, and I just am not, quite aware enough to be able to do it. And then I cross over and I'm too aware. And so that's kind of where I'm at with that. So, but all good stuff, generally speaking. And yeah, I'm online. I was number one, Marty, I'd never heard of a dog surfing championship stuff. That's really interesting. My sister owns a surf camp, so she must know about this. I'll have to ask her. That's fascinating. Although I have heard of dog surfing before, but not like a dog surfing championship. I wanted to mention that for the past couple years, a couple years ago, I started smelling smoke, and I'm gonna close this door. Okay, come on in. Lay down. A couple years ago, I started smelling smoke when there was no smoke. I thought maybe, oh wait, somebody's smoking. I'm very sensitive to the smell of smoke for some reason. So like if somebody even smokes once in a while, I can smell it on them immediately. And, oh, you had a cigarette. But so it was that kind of a smell. A couple years ago, I smelled like cigarette smoke, like somebody had been smoking, but I'm like, okay, but nobody's smoking in my home. And then I thought, well, maybe it's coming from outside. And then I went into another room in the house and I still could smell it. Anyway, I just sort of forgot about it. And, but over the last couple of years, I'll have this, I'll smell it for maybe a couple hours, it'll go away, or a couple days. Like one time, I think it was a week or 2 weeks, and I just smelled it all the time. Just sort of lightly. Now, I'll say this, I just assumed it was a medical condition. That's what I thought. But now I'm wondering, well, I don't know. Now I'm hearing this other thing or reading this about, oh, well, sometimes mediumship or whatever, when there's someone who's passed on, they will present with smells. Do you guys have any input on that? Or is it impossible to know if it's medical or if it's spiritual?
I was a practicing medium for over 40 years.
Oh.
Yes, we do smell smells. The smell that I mentioned earlier, I was talking about a couple of nights ago. What happened to me, this was completely different. I was perplexed. I was a little perplexed by it, but I was really delighted because it was just, there was nothing that felt bad about it. It was just a beautiful smell that filled the room. And I didn't experience that all my years as a medium. I've never experienced that before. I've smelled other smells. I've smelled cigarette smoke. I've smelled other kinds of smoke, all kinds of things. But never that. That was different. But
Yeah.
yeah, mediums do. Yet they use their sense of smell. They use their sense of, I mean, these psychic senses. You know, all of them. So smell, so hearing, seeing, picking it up with your mind. Everything they employ, everything they've got working for them.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't, I mean, the only person passed on that would be presenting that way would be my mom, but I don't know why she's suddenly showing up because I'm not really getting anything in particular from her. So I don't know if it's medical for some weird thing going on with my nose situation or or spiritual, because then it seemed like not long after that I did start getting into this sort of territory.
When you get into it, and I have been into yoga for a while, smells, fragrances come to you in such a profound way that you need to just stand back. I remember, and I started to share when my wife was being unfaithful, I could actually smell where she was when she came home. It develops your sense of smell. And fragrances you can actually pick up.
So you're saying you think that, like, engaging and being more aware of what we're doing here, this spiritual realm, if you want to call it that, can increase your physical sense of sensations, like smell?
Well, it's like what we call clay audience, play audio,
Yeah.
clairvoyance. It's an extra a sense, or maybe a development of the present sense, where you extend beyond the normal five senses.
Huh. Yeah, right. I mean, it could be. I could be. I do have clairaudience. I don't know if it should be called clairaudience, but I have these definitely extrasensory audio things when I'm going into, which I've shared with y'all, when I'm trying to project. And so I definitely, and it's sort of like one of my signs that I'm going in the right direction. So I don't know, but I don't think I have a sense of smell that's I notice during the times I'm projecting. This is just randomly, I'm just in my house doing whatever, and then all of a sudden it comes on, and then eventually I know when it goes away. Like right now I don't have it and it'll come back. I mean, it's just really strange. I don't know what to make of it. I don't think I should talk to the doctor about it, because they're not, I doubt she's gonna know anything about, like, what are you gonna say? It's not hurting you, so I don't know.
Susan?
Psychic sense of smell is, well, there's two names for it. One is clairaudience. That's what I've always called it, because I have that. So that may be what you're experiencing. It's just, the development of your psychic sense of smell.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't happen all the time. It would, as you're developing it, it would just come and go, for a while. So.
Yeah, Marty, I hope it's okay if I just share. Yeah, it's like almost like a dirty ashtray smell. I mean, I grew up with two smokers. My mom was a chain smoker. And so I was just, the constant, and I just assumed it was neurological or whatever, or some kind of medical thing. But, because I know that's out there too, I guess. Although I don't think they know the cause of it for these people. So maybe people are experiencing, one of these clairs, and the medical industry is like, oh, it's some kind of medical blah, blah, blah. We can't really nail it down. We can't tell you why, and then move along. And they're just like, okay, I guess I'm fine. I'm just going to smell this once in a while. Right? It's just interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, Julie, who knows what you're opening up with all this research and practice that you're doing.
I remember someone warning me before, like they saw I was sharing things on Facebook or whatever, and I think it was somebody from a Christian background, and said, you better be careful what doors you're opening, because you can't shut them once you open them. And I wrote back something like, Oh, I'm ready to open them up. I'm good. Thank you. I feel okay about it. I feel like I'm in a good space to do that. But thank you for your concern, because there's some people that think it's like opening the door to, you know, I don't know, Satanism or something. I don't
Right.
know, or something demonic or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Valkyr says below he's from California and he's happy to be here with us. Put a little message there in the chat area. Jason, what's going on?
Same old stuff.
No, Jason, it can't be the same old. Come on.
New stuff that's old.
Just make up a story then, will you?
Make up a story. I don't know. Having some weird dreams, I guess. I dreamed I was like a giant slug. That was weird. So yeah, more dream activity than usual. So that's something, I guess.
Well, that's a good sign that when you feel like taking it to the next level, you'll be a step ahead already.
There you go.
Thanks, Jace.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Stephanie. Steph, if you're safe and you can unmute yourself, go ahead. All right, maybe she stepped out of the office at the moment here.
She texted. She said silly problems.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Susan.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I have the microphone disabled at all times except for you, Juice. So it's an extra step to turn it back on, and then it glitches and I have to refresh. So anyway, I'm here now. So funny that Jason had a slug dream. Last night I rescued 3 snails. Like like they were big, like 1-inch guys that would have been crunched, and so I rescued them from the driveway, and that's funny. They're effectively slugs, right? But
I feel safer already.
Aw. Yeah, weird dreams here too. I could have sworn I'd remember it for sure, and I did not. Lo and behold. So remind yourself to get a dream journal and properly behave and keep it by my bedside. I haven't actually done that in a while.
It's so important, but it's so easily overlooked.
Oh, and I have the book in hand, even though it's the last night. I finally have been poking through the book and read a little bit before the meetup.
Oh, nice job, Steph.
Yeah.
You'll pass when I give the final exam then. All right, guys, so we move into chapter 19. Let's see, let me pull up my notes here. This chapter is a little sad, I guess. I don't know. It's a big change for Monroe in this chapter here. And this is kind of like what Marty was talking about, maybe the beginning of that when he started pushing people away afterwards. But this is it, Taking Time Out, chapter 19. So all of the I there activity and exploration slipped into the background when Monroe's wife Nancy's illness, she had breast cancer, got worse, and she was in the hospital. And then while visiting Nancy in the hospital, before he left, he asked her if she wanted to go play later in Focus 27. She said yes, and Monroe said, "I'll see you later." I thought that was awesome. Going into the hospital and telling your significant other, lover, whatever, that, hey, let's go meet up in Focus 27 later. Which would take away the fear of death, and I would think a lot for both parties. Marty?
That actually, you know, you were saying that was pretty cool, but to me, that was the saddest thing about the whole end of the book, was that, you know, he called it, you know, the big L that he had with Nancy, his wife, and yet he goes on that, and this is in chapter 19. Once the transition is made for most, the resident's interest and attachment begins to fade.
Mm-hmm.
Almost immediately, some slowly, some rapidly, but it does. All of your data show that that except for the rare ghost application, even with your big L binding as it is. And then he, you know, says as kind of a final thing about, he called her his Silver Queen. That was his favorite, I guess, her nickname or something. How long will your Silver Queen lady remain in or around Focus 27? You don't know, and we don't know, he says in there. And then says, don't forget, at the very least, you know your Silver Queen will be with you at the final departure when we wink out in the 35th century. What more do you want? And I for one say, I want a heck of a lot more than that. I do not want to wait until we've gathered up all the theirs that are lost in the belief system territories and blah, 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 and have to wait 1,500 years to, no, what more do I want? Yes. So to me, that was very, very depressing, because as talented as he was at exploring, you know, the nether worlds, he had his 2 sessions that he had with her, and then it was so traumatic that he didn't, not only did he not go to see her anymore, he didn't have any more non-physical activity, period, ever, after those 2 sessions that he went to see her. So that's kind of a real big like downer for me, this chapter.
Yeah, Marty, I was going to say that part is sad for me, but the part in the beginning was awesome for me because she was still alive. He didn't know she was going to die yet, and they were hanging out in Focus 27 while she was alive. Susan?
When I read this chapter, and it talked about him, you know, the last night with his wife there in the hospital, and he goes home, and how it affected him so profoundly, even though he knew everything that he knew. That happens. That happens. You know, that's a huge loss, But I was sad for him that he, you know, that it affected him in that way, and that, you know, it changed the way he did everything from then on. And it reminded me, I was reminded of this, another book that I read many years ago called The Unobstructed Universe. Has anybody read that?
I'll write that down. Unobstructed Universe.
By Stuart Edward White. And his wife, Betty, was a medium. They found out that after, you know, they were doing some exercises, sort of like Jane Roberts and her husband used to do. They were doing some things like that. And they discovered that she was a natural medium, a channel medium. And so The Unobstructed Universe is the story, I mean, of her channeling so much stuff after she died. She passed away. She channeled a lot of stuff to them, but before she died, they did a lot of channeling. But Stuart and his wife were very close, like Robert and his wife were. They were, you know, they had this lifelong work that they had done together. And then when she died, he was, you know, he went home from the hospital, and he said he was devastated because it was empty. That everything was just, you know, he was just devastated. He said he got up and he walked outside because he felt so bad. He walked outside and just stood outside and looked up at the sky, and he said that he felt her presence. He felt her presence come to him, and he went back inside, and he said, you know how you're a couple, and the wife will be sitting there reading or doing, you know, handcrafts or whatever you do, and the man's whatever he's doing, you don't have to really talk to know that presence is there. And he said she came into that room and he felt her presence, and he said it was so strong. He said he never felt a moment's sadness after that he knew that she was fine, she was accessible. And he said she stayed, you know, her presence came to him and stayed with him a lot. So it was different. You know, I saw this as different from what Robert Monroe experienced, and it made me sad that his was so devastating and affected him negatively. Ultimately, affected him negatively, and you know, and this, it was a similar situation, but this woman came to her husband. Her presence was there, so he said he was so strong that he could almost reach out and touch her. That was, you know, that she did that for him. And so he said from that moment on, he never had another moment of sadness. He said that he missed her presence, but he felt her presence. So, you know, it was a different outcome. This guy went on to write books, more books, and you know, carried on. And she kept working through him after she passed away. So it made me sad. I thought about that, and I thought, you know, how sad. I didn't know that was how Monroe's wife had died until I read this book. I didn't know how that had happened. And so it made me very sad that it, you know, that it was so difficult for him.
Right.
Yeah.
Mikey?
Someone said something regarding the Focus 27 and you're still alive. Some years ago, my niece was in the hospital. She was on a deathbed. And the doctors told us, look, go home. If something happens, if anything changes, we'll call you. And while we were walking down the steps, I saw my niece run across to the morgue area. And it happened twice. Like in the Matrix, that movie where the cat moves anyway. And when we got to the car park, I knew she had passed on, although she was still medically alive. And we drove for about maybe half an hour in the van, and then the hospital called and they said she's passed on. So I think people go on the other side and they're still medically alive.
They do. That's true.
Yeah. Well, Monroe's wife eventually died from her illness, with Monroe by her side. And later, the Lifeline team back at the Monroe Institute reported that they had taken her to Focus 27 sometime between 7:30 and 8 p.m. She was safe and warmly greeted there, reaffirming that's nice to know that you have a team of people. Just think how many people out there have loved ones who die and they can't do something like that. And then Monroe starts to realize how shocked he was and unprepared he truly was what happened. The biggest glitch variable in his life. He saw it coming, plenty of signs, all of the backup experience, and still it got to him. In reality, Nancy is the co-founder of the Monroe Institute. And then he talks about in the last chapter of how much she did for the Monroe Institute. And if it wasn't for her help, it probably never would have happened. And here's a little bit what Marty talked about. 2 nights after Nancy's departure, Monroe had cooled down enough to go and visit her. The results was an emotional explosion that included every nuisance existing between two humans deeply in love, all up front and simultaneous, without the limitations of time and physical matter. It was great effort to return, and it took days to recover. And that was his first visit to her after she died. And then he goes and visits her again, and he goes and visits her in Focus 27. And that was a week later with the same results. So then Monroe mentions it was too much for him to handle until he learned more. So he had to put up a shield that resists any kind of non-physical activity on his part. The only contacts were with his eye there, but still Monroe would drift into Nancy's direction even in the deepest sleep. So the barrier had to include this state as well. So now he started putting up barriers because he was getting drawn to her too much. Am I getting that right?
I think that's what he meant.
Yeah.
As I stated in the beginning, it's easy for us to speak to others. But when it comes home, it's so much more difficult. It's so hard to deal with. You know, in the beginning, I would talk to people, they will have family passed on. I don't do that anymore. But when it came to my mom, and I'm going to get emotional here, when it came to my mom, when my mom, just before my mom passed on, she called me in because I was the black sheep. I was the weird one in the family and the one who saw things. And she recognized that my mom was the only supportive member of my family that I had. And she called me and she said, "You know where I'm going. You know where I'm going, don't you?" I said, "Yes, I know where you're going." She said, "I'll meet you on the other side." I was the only person she said that to. "I'll meet you on the other side." And it was like 2 or 3 days later, she passed on. But meeting my mom and meeting other people was so different. You know, it's so emotional. It's so traumatic that it takes weeks to recover. And I understand what what Robert Monroe was going through there. You know, it's so easy with a friend, but when it comes home, so much more difficult.
I'm wondering, what do you guys think? Is it better off that we don't do what Monroe does, or what Mikey's talking about, and not visit our loved ones when they go? Susan?
Um, I don't have a straight answer for that because um, I've done it and I'm glad that I've done it. I will continue to do it if if I want to visit somebody, I will do it. If I can go and find them. But if you make a habit of it, if you can, that can be addictive also. It can be a not letting go. If you can hold on to them out here, then you don't really have to let go. So eventually you have to let them go. You have to because you're always connected spiritually. You're always connected spiritually, but you have to let them go on and not be there all the time, all the time, all the time. They have things to do, and it does take effort. It does take effort. I wouldn't do it quickly. That's what I've advised people who have astral projections and have wanted to try that, and I've told them don't do it immediately. Give them some time to you give them some time to because they recuperate, they rest, they kind of reorient themselves into the state of being that they're in. So I've waited and I've always plotted everything out very carefully, and I've planned things usually a month or 2 months in advance. I have planned, and so I take my time and I go, and it's not an emotional toll on me. It's not a physical toll on me or anything. So I I would always say, yeah, if you loved them, if you cared for them, um, if you can do this and you want to try to do it, sure, try to do it. But give it some time. Don't go when you're raw emotionally. When you're very raw, it's harder that way. It's really hard, and the recovery time is longer. Wait till you've had time to your emotions to level out a bit and stuff, and then do it. But I'll always go for it. Always. If I can. If I can get there, I'm going to go.
Thanks, Susan. So then Monroe starts to wonder if he can live in two worlds at the same time, with Nancy in 27 and here with his lonely fur family, 7 cats and 2 dogs. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what to do. And then Monroe gets back into the data about what most people do after they die, how the resonance, the interests, the attachments begin to fade almost immediately. And as Marty talked about earlier, even with your big L, which is your big love, as binding as it is. And then Monroe starts to wonder how long Nancy will remain in and around Focus 27 before she's gone and she's just not there anymore. And that's for me, like it's pretty sad story, wondering all this stuff.
I'm confused about that idea. I get how you might feel less and less attached, but I thought that the higher level, whatever frequency we shift to, we still have the ability to go down to whatever lower level, as you know, depending on our skill, I guess. But I guess you know that you can't. So why wouldn't you? Like, I don't know why you wouldn't want to, if you, even if you move on to the higher levels or outer rings or however you want to put it, if you can bring some peace and connection or love to a loved one in one of your lives, many lives, why wouldn't you do that? I feel like I would do that, so I'm a little confused. Like,
Some do, some don't.
Mhm.
You know, some move quickly, and they the urgency for that is not the same for them, because where they go, there is no time.
yeah,
We're thinking, oh, all this time is going by and I miss them so badly. They don't miss it at all, because no time has passed for them. And wherever they go, when we pass, there's still going to be that meeting, that where everybody gets together. They're obligated. It's like an obligation to do that. They all come back together for us, briefly, you know, and you have this reunion, you have this meeting, so everybody's, you know, you have this closure, kind of. Well, it's sort of closure, but it's also a new beginning. But some people just go on and they just don't. I've wondered about, because my brother promised me, we talked about this for a long time. I did see him about 3 nights ago. I had a short dream, and I did see him in the dream. I knew it was my brother. It wasn't what I was expecting, and it wasn't as satisfying as I wanted, but I was fine with it. It was, we were talking. It wasn't about anything particularly important. I was really glad to see him. I didn't mention the fact that he had passed or anything like that. And it was, you know, it was a brief dream. It was maybe 5 minutes of seeing him and listening to him talk to other people. So I wasn't out of body. This was just a real lucid dream. And so I woke up and I thought, that was Mike. That was Mike. Maybe that's what I'll get with him. Maybe this is all that I'll get from him. You know, maybe he's just very, very busy, like he was in life.
but I mean, once you crossed over and you're on the, at least the, like the, you know, middle astral realm or something, it seems like he would be able to visit you even more readily, more easily.
Oh, he could. He could. Absolutely, he could. But for whatever reason, he hasn't. He was very sick when he died. He was very sick. And I knew that there was going to be a recuperation period. There was going to be a period of our time where I didn't see him, hear from him, or anything. And then it's been close to a year now. It's been about 9 months, I guess, 8 or 9 months since he passed. And I get this little thing in the dream. And so I started thinking about Mike himself, what he was like, you know, and always late to every function, ever, except concerts. We get to a concert, we were there early. But he was always late. He had so many irons in the fire. He was always busy. I wouldn't expect him to be any different now. You know, I expect him to just, he would be exploring, because he was an adventurer. You know, he could not travel enough. He hiked, he skied, he water skied, he surfed, he rode motorcycles, and just all the stuff that he did. And so I can see him going, recuperating, and then just going, whoa, I can do what? Yeah. I'm gonna go have fun. He wouldn't think about it. There would be times when we didn't hear from him when he was in his 30s, about 40-ish. We wouldn't hear from him for a year. You know, he would just be busy. We wouldn't see him. And yeah, the last 20 years of his life, we were all very close. You know, he would come around more. He had kids. You know, he was married, had kids. But Mike was just, that was his personality. So, you know, we take all of that with us, and I don't see why he would be any different. I can see Mike just totally being excited to be back where he's freer, and he can go wherever he chooses to go, wherever he needs to go. And he had a lot of friends who passed before him too. And I thought, well, he's going to spend a lot of time with them. So I'm not upset that I haven't had a good visitation from him. If I don't ever have a better visitation than that, I'm not upset. It's fine. This is Mike. Mike.
Yeah, yeah.
He's fine. He's okay. He knows I love him. You know, he's out there. He can, if I talk to him, I know he hears me. He picks that up. So yeah, I'm not worried about it. I'd love to sit down and have a conversation, let him tell me things that I don't know about
Yeah.
where he is. But if that doesn't happen, I'm not, you know, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Andrew?
With regards to, because dreaming about having visitations, I've had a series of those kind of visitations. Now I don't know whether those dreams are to give me an insight into the progress of the soul, you know, when they passed on. But sometimes it could start from, oh, they were in a very, very shabby, I dreamt I saw them and they were living in some very, very shabby place and they looked very sad, you know, and then it could then progress. It could then progress into them being into a better place. And it's much brighter. And they don't have those conditions that they used to have that plagued them before they died. You understand? And then it then develops into you know, into other scenarios, you understand, where now they're in a much brighter place and they're happier and they're able to do what they want, you know, what they want to do. So I'm not aware whether those ones are to do with a mirror, because the dream, a dream itself is like a reflection of the astral, of what's happening on the astral plane. So parts of it is going to be fragmented, but you can still get the picture or theme that there's progress happening. Now, as for the part where we detach, you have to understand that from what I've gathered, when we die, we move on to the psychic plane. So we have a period where we spend on the psychic plane, and there are different levels, like higher, the low astral plane, a higher mid astral plane, and up to the high astral plane. Now, up to that point, um, we are still able to come down and visit loved ones. But if you understand what the astral plane is for, it's about getting rid of all our attachments before we move on to the next level. Because we're moving from beings, from our psychic being to our spiritual nature. And once we enter into the mental, like the mental plane, you have to understand the nature of the mental body. It's detached. It doesn't carry any emotions with it. It can, you know, it is detached from that part, because you're supposed to have got, you're supposed to, by the time you get to that level, you're supposed to have already made that detachment anyway, because it's now time to enter into your spiritual dimension, because you've gone through your psychic dimension. Now the next stage is the spiritual dimension, and part of that is that detachment part. So you're not going to have any feelings of, oh, I have to come back, I have to come and check on anyone. You've gone past that level now, because the mental body doesn't have those kind of you know, it's detached.
But if I can just point out that even if I have no attachments personally, or if I'm not emotionally attached to anyone, I'm not a robot. I don't think I'm going to be a robot in the mental plane. I hope not. In that, what I'm saying is that I will hopefully still be like have some kind of empathy, like I can see into the heart of maybe my son or my husband or something, or my mother, and know that they are suffering. So how about I just make a connection, get some closure for this person, not because I'm attached, but because I see this person is still attached. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. What you're saying makes sense, but it's the nature of that body. It's of a mental character. Even if you were to mentally project out of your body and you look and you were able to observe your physical body,
Yeah.
all you will see is something that looks like a mold of flesh and
Right.
husk. And
Yeah.
that is how detached it's going to be. And this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
your
I've
own,
read that before.
yes, yeah. Well, that is the nature of what that is the nature of the immortal spirit. It's not bound by
Right.
it's not bound by anything. It's not
But I
bound
would
by
hope
time,
that
space.
I would still look at the lump of flesh that I occupied and have gratitude of some sort.
Yeah,
Like,
all that. Yes, I understand what you're saying, but all that stuff that you're talking about will all be dealt with on the astral plane. That's where you get. That's where all of those stuff gets purged. Because you have to remember that you've had so many people that you have loved. You have had so many parents that you have loved. You
yeah,
understand? So you
yeah,
have to let go of all that. I'll give you an experience I had. There was one time I suddenly woke up in my out of a deep a deep meditation, and I was in my room, and there were all these people in my room all talking at once. And one of them was a woman who said, "You promised you were going to love me forever," and stuff like that. And I looked at her, and I tried to recall the period of the incarnation, and then I noticed something very funny, that she was actually a reincarnation of the person who I was with now. You understand? But that personality was still up there saying I'd promised to love her forever.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you understand? But the current person who I was with at that time, it was one of her personalities.
yeah,
So, and that's the reason why we have to let go of all that one when we all those baggage, because the journey back to the source, we are
yeah,
traveling light. We're not carrying any baggage. It's a light,
yeah. I think it's just
so
my tendency to want to make, my loved ones feel as like have the closure and be as in the best place as possible. That if I guess that's just where I am right now. I just want to leave them in a really good place.
But that's okay.
As far as it depends on me.
Yeah, that's okay. If it's closures you want, that can be things like that do happen. I've even had closures which I didn't even know that before someone crossed over, they came up to me and we had a closure, and then the next day I heard that person had died. So it's still possible to do closures even once people have passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when we're beginning to ascend now, it's now about us now. It's about us going back into going back to unity. It's not about who we've been or who was our parents or who this was and all that. It's not about that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Andrew. I'm gonna move to Mikey.
Well, Andrew hit the nail on the head there. The operative word there is attachment. And from my years of traveling on the other side, I think it is attachment that keeps someone here. I think I shared the ghost that I met some years ago, the woman who was murdered on the beach. And her problem was that she wanted to connect with the daughter before she moved on. So it's a weight. And the thing Andrew said, that it's like a weight to move on, to go on. And you need to drop that weight off. And a lot of people, we hear about things like ghosts and people, hauntings and so on. These entities, I would say entities, have some attachment on this side. And unless they drop that attachment, they cannot move on. And I have, over the years, I've met people who is trying to go on, but there is this attachment still here. And someone, I think it was Julie who alluded to it. We ask ourselves the question: when I go on the other side, will I feel the same way? And my mom is like, she's gone on the other side. I know my mom loves me. I love my mom, and she's always with me. But she got to move on. She has to move on. But her presence is still with me. One thing in closing, I'm not trying to hide my face. I've been trying for a long while to get my camera going. And I'm hoping before I leave this island, I can get my webcam on. So I'm not hiding my face.
Thanks, Mikey. Susan?
Well, you know, we're talking about people coming back after they pass to give us some a bit of closure or comfort after they've passed, that they can tell we're suffering or that we miss them or whatever. And I've had a lot of relatives do that for me. That's one of the reasons that I made up this, what I call a visitation agreement, and I made it with all of my family members, all of them, and a lot of friends, that if I die first, I will give them some sort of sign that I'm okay. Whatever I can do, I will do it. If they go first, they do that for me. And if they agree to that, if you make that agreement while the person is alive, they will honor it after they pass. They will honor that. So I wanted to say that it's always a good idea to do that. Talk to somebody beforehand, because then you know that they know what's expected of them. You know what's expected of you. You know, however the situation is. But I also wanted to say that I've had friends I've lost a lot of friends when I was younger. I mean, back in the 60s and 70s, there's a lot of stuff going on then. And I lost several friends just about the time I got out of high school. And I hadn't seen either of these. There were two friends in particular that these happened close together within the same year. One died of cancer, bone cancer, a friend of mine from high school, a really good friend of mine. And another one that was a very good friend of mine died in an automobile accident in South Texas for work. And I was just crushed because they were good friends. And, you know, at that age, you don't expect to start losing people at that age. But when it happens, it's a big blow. And so I was really sad about it. And I miss them. And I think about a year after the young man with bone cancer passed away, I was lying in bed one day, and I was in that vibration state and just separate. I was separate, but I didn't get out of body. I stayed there. I stayed with my body, but I was ajar from it. You could, you know, that's what you do. And he just appeared in the room to me. He appeared in my room where I was lying on the bed. He stood beside the bed. He had a suit. He was wearing a suit, which would never, you know, I've never seen him in a suit. This is a little flower child, beautiful little hippie, long hair, and his hair was very short. And I had to look at him to realize that it was who he was. And I looked at him and said, "Michael, what are you doing here, Michael?" And he said, "I never died. I never died." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I never died." And he said, "Today's my birthday. Ask my mother if it's true." And that was it. And he was gone. And he smiled at me. It's a big smile. And then he just faded away. He was gone. And I didn't know his mother. It was years later that my mother-in-law met her and asked her. And the time of year was correct. I don't remember the day. And we didn't know the day that this happened to me. But it was about the time. It was the time of year when he passed away. And then the second friend was my age also, and he was a good friend of my husband's and mine. And he worked after he got out of high school. Him and my husband worked together out at one of the early jobs. They'd worked at one of the chemical plants, and I missed him a lot because he was such a funny guy. And so I think about 8 months after he passed away, I was lying in bed one night, and I saw him off in the distance. I could see his face off in the distance. And when I recognized who it was, I went, "Oh, it's Thomas." And he moved. He came in very quickly till he was standing. He was right in front of me. And he had this big grin on his face. And I was expecting something really profound. And he looked at me and he said, "Muskrat." And then he disappeared. And I was like, "Oh, what did that mean?" It was so funny because it was him. He was right there, and it felt wonderful. And I was so glad to see him. But all he said was "Muskrat." He was gone. And so the next day I told my husband about it, and I said, and he just said "Muskrat." And he said, "Wait, what did he say?" And I said, "He said muskrat." "Well, why?" And he said, when we worked at the plant, he said everybody had a nickname based on either how they walked, how they did this, whatever. And he said, for some reason, we just called Thomas Muskrat. That became his nickname, but I never knew that. but he told me that. And I felt like both of them came at a crucial point in my life when I was kind of, I had become, I'd already developed mediumistic abilities and things, but their appearance to me just confirmed that yes, this is very real. This is very possible. They came. Thomas showed me something that I did not know, and Mike was telling me, "Go ask my mother. Today is my birthday." They were telling me things that I could concretely check out, and they helped me. So they came back for a reason. Mike. It was at least a year after Mike died, and Thomas. I think it was about 8 months after Thomas died. But here they appeared. Just out of nowhere. I didn't ask them to. We'd never made any kind of agreement, but they appeared because it was to help me move me along my path a little bit more. And because we were friends, they did that for me. So it's not just family members that will do this. They will come back to you sometimes. It's going to be people that you're just acquainted with or friends with too.
Right. Thanks, Susan. And this is the last note I have on chapter 19, which Marty talked about a little earlier, which is, I guess, would be kind of a good news that Monroe does know that his Silver Queen, which he calls his wife, will be with him at his final departure when he winks out in the 35th century. And then his last words were, "What more do you want?" So, Marty, I was going to ask you real quick, did you find that happy? A happy part?
I did not find it a happy part because I can't accept waiting 1,500 years.
Oh, 15, yeah. But knowing how we talked about how time is different, does that help?
Well, I gotta say that it seems to me like I should just go now. That's what it seems to me, is I shouldn't chance this stuff, Yeah. So that's the effect it had on me.
Yeah.
Looks like a real big risk. And
Marty, when you do try to do this, plan it out. Plan every detail, your mental command, everything, because I found when I'm doing this that I have to hold even more tightly to my destination, the imagined destination, than if I'm just having a regular out-of-body experience and I'm going to bebop over here, I'm going to go do this or whatever. That required so much focused attention, but it's so worth it, Just really hold that intention to get to where you're going. Hold it, and don't let it waver, and don't give up if you don't do it the first time. The next time, get other astral projections under your belt too. But I would just go for it. I would just go for it, because you're going to come back. If you don't make it there, you come back here, and you try again later. It's not going to hurt. There's no harm in trying, and just go. And and just hold on to your intention, to your destination. Your destination is your husband. He is your destination. So it does not matter. You don't have to know where he is, what level he is on, or anything. He himself, what your love for him, what you know about him, his personality, everything, your knowledge of him, your knowing of him is your destination. And you hold that. And wherever he is, it should take you to him. Eventually, it's going to take you to a meeting place with him, because they're going to, out there where he is, they're going to know that you're doing this, that you're, so it's like a last thing that he can do for you. Yes, he's got, you will find him. You will get there.
Thank you.
Mikey?
Oh, wait.
If I could add a validation, people go on the other side. They're really smart, because and the ghost that communicated with me, she had a validation for her daughter, because it's difficult for me to contact the daughter and tell the daughter, listen, I spoke to your mom. And in the story that I wrote to the daughter, I wrote it as a story. In our island, there is something called silk cotton. It's a large tree and blows with silk cotton for miles. And each morning she would, well, not each morning, a lot of times she would go to a tree that she planted in the back and she would seed with silk cotton. And the mom told me to tell her that those silk cotton, I have blown it to you. And that is the only way to recognize, hey, this is my mom. Otherwise, it was just like a story. So people on the other side can actually do things to get your attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I took what Marty said a little differently. Like the Seth books talk about kind of the end of the world stuff and like another 30, 40 years. It's like, that's too long. And this Monroe seems to imply that the world's going to keep on going for another 2,000, I thought, well, what's another 1,000 more years or so? That's too long, in my opinion.
You know what else too is there's this great big giant question mark about what then, you know, what's on the other side of the emitter, you know, that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we can create what's on the other side. That's what's great about it. So Monroe gives us a lot of samples of what's already there, but there's a sandbox, right? We can make new stuff.
Actually, Monroe's never been on the other side of the emitter, the aperture, yet. I don't think he ever talked about what was on the other side of that. Did he ever mention it? Does anybody know?
I don't think you did.
No.
Well, if you check the glossary in the back, it defines aperture, and it's just the kind of the gateway, right?
Yeah, the aperture is just where you get basically pulled into with all your gifts and stuff, and all your eye theres and everything. I was gonna mention, Marty, here also on the back of the book. After graduating from Lifeline, first you have to do like a gateway series or some other thing there, prerequisite, before you can do the Lifeline. But then after you complete the Lifeline, you can take a course called Exploration 27, which offers a systematic series of planned visits to Focus 27 in order to obtain information, data, and direct experience beyond what is explained in the Lifeline program. Participants also learn to access new stages of consciousness, Focus 34 and 35, identified as the area of the gathering in Monroe's Far Journeys. So, Marty, I was wondering if you were ever curious of maybe doing the Lifeline program at the Monroe Institute.
I don't think I have enough time left in my life. I'm 73 and seeing a lot of my friends get demented. Not me, of course. But I'm kind of giving up on, I mean, I've kind of given up, actually. I'm thinking, I'm glad I feel so like it's the best thing in my entire life that I've had these experiences. It's the best. And so I'm so appreciative that I've had them, you know, that I know what's out, you know, that at least I know for a fact it's not just the physical, you know, it's because I'm a very left-brained individual. You know, I'm really good at having a hypothesis and riding the hypothesis, but there's always a thing in the back of my mind that maybe it's true and maybe it's not, you know. And like you, Juice, like you were saying, but now I don't. Now I feel for sure. So
that's great.
Well, if it helps, there was a Lakota. It's a Lakota tribe member that made a prophecy on January 2nd of this year. He said, come spring, we're going to see very troubling times, lots of trauma, lots of truth revealed, uncomfortable truths, things the collective, you know, has never been in public, you know, things that have never been made public before. Kind of a PTSD for the planet. But come summer, it will have lifted, people will have processed, and we'll have a whole new society. And we'll start blurring spirituality with economics. We'll have Woodstock. We'll have a resurgence of the arts and music. And so very, very positive stuff on the way. This is just like kind of the end of like the final resistance, you could say, according to him, according to what he's picked it up on over the years. So I would say hang in there, just in case that pans out. There's a lot of things up in the air right now. It's really interesting. And a lot of people paid good money to get a ticket to be on Earth right now. This is supposed to be high demand, the place to be, all this dynamic stuff up in the astral like attracts like, and it's just not that busy, not that dynamic, not that nuanced. And so here's where it's at. But yeah, it's getting ridiculous. I'm with you. I'm so with you. But I'm crossing my fingers.
Marty?
Oh, I just wanted to say, if I don't get another chance for a while, this stuff is the most important thing in my entire life. And my friends and family all think I'm nuts, you know, if I bring it up. Or I'm lying, or I'm making it up, or, you know, I'm sure you've all heard it. The condescending, well, if it makes you feel better, that's fine, you know, that sort of thing. And it's just been such a privilege to get to know you guys. And I love you all. So just wanted to say that.
I love you. That's so sweet.
Thanks, Marty.
Thanks for being with us. That's great.
I want you to have this.
Good to have you.
I just really want you to have this experience. And I know you will.
And I think you're doing a great job, Marty. You're an inspiration for me.
The voice from the chat, Valkyr, is saying Marty is awesome.
Well, for everyone who is on here that wasn't on here earlier, this is the last night for the book series. We finished it. We went through all 3 books together. And I want to do the CIA gateway files that were disclosed. I want to get into that next while all this is fresh in our heads, and continue sharing with each other our stories and helping each other out. It seems like a lot of us got a lot of help with this, and it's so nice that we're helping each other, and it does feel like a family. And before I close the night tonight, I was wondering if anybody has any last words or anything they want to talk about for the.
Yeah, there's one thing I want to ask. Did Monroe say he wasn't going to see his wife for the next 1,500 years, or what did you say?
He knows in 1,500 years he's going to actually meet up with his wife and go through the aperture, plane. Yeah, and get and go in together with all those I theres and stuff, I thens, I heres. But he's not sure if he's going to be able to visit his wife in Focus 27 anymore. He doesn't know, because he put a block up not to visit her, really. And
that was the choice he made.
That's a choice he made because it was causing too many problems, I guess, for him here on Earth.
Okay.
If anybody else, if I said that wrong, correct me.
Well, he was asking, what about after, including the time after Monroe dies, right? Like, does it imply that he won't see her for the next, 10 years, but also after he dies, and also all the way up until 3,500 or something? I would figure, I'm sure they'll see each other between the time, but I would like to think there's some kind of simultaneous, timeless weirdness going on. And when he said 3,500 something, he meant this alternate timeline simulation of Earth thing that's actually like yesterday. And good to go.
Yeah. And I was going to mention too that I'm going to put the information up on the release files up on the boards of Facebook and Stephanie's meetup site too, so we can study that and give it like a week or so. I'll try to get those up in the next couple of days, that information. Yeah.
If it's the one I remember, it's about 10 pages long. Is that right, Juice?
I actually don't know, because I know they released a little bit earlier and then they released some more, so I'm not sure on that. Does anybody know?
Nice. I read the full report on the Monroe Institute from the CIA. That was 10 pages long. It was
Okay.
dense, but it wasn't very long.
Yeah. So it's either going to be that stuff if they added onto it, or I'll have to figure it out.
So if there's more, great. That means I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We made the 3 books together. Nice out-of-body family here. And keep an eye out for the next meetups coming up. Keep it going. Keep helping each other. Keep sharing. And I hope everybody has a great night.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, thanks,
Welcome.
Juice. All right, babe. See you
You're
next book.
The next book's in the aperture. You got to go through it to get it.
Oh, man.
The 11th prophecy. Thanks
And-
again, Juice. You're really good at motivating people and yourself and me. I really appreciate that.
Oh, ditto for everyone.
Yeah, love your approach, Juice, to these groups, and just love your chill attitude and your encouraging ways. So appreciate you.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Juice.
Thanks, Mikey. Thanks, Susan, for everything, for sharing so much experience.
Yes. Thanks, Susan
Well,
and Juice.
Yeah.
Yeah, Susan,
And
you're
you too.
amazing. It's like,
Steph,
Great,
thanks
thank
for
you.
keeping the OBE meetup group going too. I thank you so much.
oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for adding so much content.
so we're going to get together again in a week or so for the release papers that you were talking
Yeah. Yep. So I'm just going to post those in the next day or two. Just keep an eye out for them. And then I'll just do a meetup like in a week and do our first meetup on that.
Everybody bring their OBE stories. You got a week.
Yeah.
You got a
Right.
week to do it. Intention.
There you go.
Okay, everyone. Good night. See you soon.
Thanks.
Happy out-of-body experiences, everyone.
Good night. Happy OBE.